Looking back now, I wish I could have pushed to get that decision sooner. Now that we're through it and we're on the other side, it was extremely daunting at the beginning, but being on the other side, it is so worth it.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenly, and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we've got a great interview ahead of us, but before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days we cover things like trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. Some days we open up for Q&A, and occasionally you get a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. And as a reminder, if you like the content that we share here on the show, make sure that you subscribe for more. All right, today we have a special interview that Matt hosted with one of our customers, Isabel Cosby of Protis Global. I know. We don't usually have podcasts that are focused on Loxo on our platform, but the reason that we wanted to have this episode was because it's actually about something much larger that we see so many recruiters struggling with today. So what is it? It's the recognition that the software and tech that has gotten them here isn't going to help get them there. So between changing regulations, market conditions, and technological advancements, the legacy ATS and the Frankenstack of bolt-ons that they're built off of, it's just not keeping up. And most all recruitment organizations recognize this, or they're beginning to see the cracks in the foundation poking through. But the jump from the legacy stack to the modern recruitment stack, it's scary. It's unknown. It requires learning new tech, new processes, getting the team on board. And so that's why we loved having Isabel join Matt for this conversation, because she successfully navigated all of those things. And Protis Global is now hitting new heights as a result of successfully adapting. So from handling the change management to finding tech that keeps up with the modern recruitment, to getting leadership and organization buy-in, to equipping the team for success long after implementation, this conversation truly covers it all. So pull out your pen and paper for this one. I promise you're going to want to take notes. Let's jump in.
So I'm super excited for everyone that's joined today. I think it's going to be a very special episode. And I actually think this will be one of the most listened to episodes over time, because what we're going to talk about today walks listeners through the process and learnings of making the difficult decision of going through digital transformation. And actually, Isabel, you live to tell the tale here. So there's a lot to this. And it sounds like, as everyone has to kind of face this decision at some point or the other, the expertise that you bring to the table is going to really help a lot of people. So I can't wait. And to start with, what I'd love, if you don't mind, if you can introduce yourself and just help everyone understand who Isabel is, and that'd be wonderful.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Matt, and I am flattered that I could be the most listened to episode that you have to date. So I am the VP of Operations for Protis Global and ACE Talent Curators. I oversee the operations team as well as the sales team, and I have been with Protis, it'll be 3 years this December. And I've always worked in the operational support capacity with the team. And I'm always, since joining the team, I have a very strong hospitality background in sales and marketing, working in restaurants. And as you know, coming up from that background, people and support and delivering in that experience every time is really the backbone of who I am fundamentally. So when I came to Protis and ACE, I did the same thing here. And I immediately tried to identify ways that I can impact change and I could develop the team and really help ultimately everybody else, including myself, be better. So it's been really neat to be part of this and work my way up from the manager level to the VP level, overseeing both sales and operations today. And
Isabel, you're so humble about this. A big reason why we're also having this episode is, in my personal opinion, you and Protis, this is really like an aspirational, brand in the market, and you're a large and sophisticated and super successful recruitment shop. You have multiple brands. You do exec search, you do staffing, totally different branch, and the path and the evolution of how you've done this over time is pretty fascinating too. But yeah, do you mind sharing just, Protis, formerly was, if people don't know, is like Burt Miller was the CEO of MRI Network, and it's been around for a long time, extremely successful. Can you just share a little bit about Protis and ACE?
Yeah, absolutely. So next year will be 30-year anniversary for Protis Global. And I always jokingly tell everybody that Bert has 3 children, right? Protis Global is most definitely one of his third children. And he runs the organization from that standpoint. So it's super neat to be part of that and to experience that. So, he really dreamt up Protis of looking to support companies within the CP industry from ideation to product shelf. So when we're going to talk to these organizations, we're not just saying, hey, we can recruit in X, Y, and Z roles. No, we can fully support companies in the CPG space and every facet of the hiring needs that they might have. And that's really kind of where ACE was born from too, because ACE Talent Curators works with the same clientele in the CPG space as Protis Global does, but then they help them on the interim contract staffing side of the business as well. So we can really have that full encompassing unique offering on both sides. And we really drive that passion and that support in what we do every single day and coming into the marketplace and really looking to find partners, not just clients and customers.
Well, thank you for helping everyone learn a little bit more, just to kick this off. And so, today's episode is, we kind of like to take an approach almost like a fireside chat, but we'll touch on lots of different topics. And because you have so much expertise, and I think the way that you handled and navigated this entire process, I was fascinated by it. Obviously we see it from our side, but literally for a decade plus since I've been doing this, every company and search firm and professional recruiting organization, they have the same concerns, really do. And I had withdrawals, Isabel, we met so frequently, I think it was over a couple of years, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You left no stone unturned. You addressed lots of concerns, and it was not an easy decision, right? And so what I'd like to do, we talk a lot about like current state and future state. Mm-hmm. And so what I'd like to do is dig into the kind of current state before Loxo. And you've always been successful. You've always been at the head, bleeding edge of your space. You were really happy and content with the business, right? And so it's like, well, why mess with something? And so what I'd really like to understand is, what happened internally and why were you all considering, why make any change at all when things were going well?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said it was fascinating, because I was like, I can't believe this guy is still willing to talk to me for almost 2 years, and I have signed no contract to join his organization or to leave our current ATS system. But we had a really lot of in-depth internal conversations, and we really talked about what our current state, to your point, is of the organization and where we would like to see ourselves, let's say the future state, and then what is our dream state, so to speak. And we really kind of tried to identify what are our bottlenecks that are currently affecting our organization from every department, right? Not just the sales team, operations, marketing, and broke it down at every single level and identified where we were, where we wanted to be, and where we would love to be ultimately long-term dream state. And that's really what started the conversation. We had a very long relationship with our legacy ATS, and it wasn't easy for us to leave because that was a relationship and a partnership that we had too, and it had worked for us for so long. But we had identified certain pain points, right? And I had talked a lot of those pain points with you. I had sent you thousands of screenshots, and this is what we're doing now. How can we fix this? How can Loxo answer these questions? And that's really where that vetting process came to. And every single time, Matt, you either had an answer or you're like, this update will give this. And then I wouldn't talk to you for a month and you're like, this update launched. Let's talk about how this now affects it. So when we sat down and finally made that decision, I had a thoroughly vetted spreadsheet that I could say, okay, this offering of Loxo can check these boxes, right? And this is the cost benefit analysis. And this is what it's going to take us to get to where we want to be financially. This is where it's going to take us to get to where we want to be as an organization. So it was definitely a courtship, to say the least.
So it wasn't spur of the moment decision.
No, not by any means. And it was a lot of asking the same questions again and again, right? And you were so patient and you were so kind, and you helped us work with different members of your team to show us the different options. And we vetted the software, I think, multiple times, and we had multiple members of our team do it. But it's a big decision, right? Switching an ATS is not something that I'm going to do again next year. It's going to be something that we're going to be in for a while, because ultimately the success of our team and the success of using the ATS lives within having the data in there and in real time.
So I'm fascinated by this because from our perspective, we talk a lot about this is you believe in something. No one's going to make a change if it's equal, right? If it's on parity, it's not worth it. It's pain and you know what? It has to improve your performance at the end of the day, business performance. Absolutely. And consultative, and that's why we would be doing it. But you built that business case, you built the ROI, it made sense, it checked the boxes. It was still beyond difficult, multiple years. Why was it so difficult? I mean, can you help break down like the psychology internally? And
I think it goes to change management, right? To ask the sales team to learn a new software system, to ask the operations team and the marketing team to export and scrub the data that needed to go into it, and then ask the sales team for how do we need to have this pipeline set up? What are the stages, right? To take the time of the teams off of the team's desks to ask them to be doing something that's not sales oriented, sales focused, was definitely. It was a decision that we had to make internally. Are we ready to make this commitment at this time for our team? And we had gotten to a certain point that, okay, this pain point can no longer sustain us. We can't continue to, this area of the business is no longer functional for us. But in switching to Loxo, that would be satisfied. But in order to switch to Loxo, we had to ask the team, okay, we need who on the team is going to vet the software, who on the team is going to help us set up and get everything rocking and rolling, so that way when we do launch and we do go live with the whole team, that everything is in place. And that's ultimately what it came down to, right? The pain of the different pain points and the bottlenecks we were experiencing outweighed the ask of getting everything kind of set up, so to speak, and in place for Loxo to be live with our team.
So, and by the way, for those of the listeners who don't know, again, going back to Isabel's humility here, you've been an employee of the year, I think, twice in a row, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah. I'm going for the 3 feet this year. Okay. It's never been done.
So it tells everyone how important Isabel is to the success of the organization. And, this transformation alone is not the only role that you have, but it was a big project you had.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about like how you made it through the end, what happened. I think part of this too is, this wasn't the only option, but Protis has been around for 3 decades. You had these pains. Why was it so acute? Like, why now? You had all these, you've been doing business the same for 30 years. All of a sudden, what's happening in the world where this was so painful? You're like, this is just, something has to change, and we're willing to do something about it.
It just got down to the quality of data. We needed accurate, up-to-date, real-time data, and we were able to do so. But in order for us to do it, it was multiple entries of that data, right? A lot of our, where we want to be future state is that single source of truth. Getting to, with all of our reporting, not just within our ATS, right? Power BI systems, any of our billing reports, getting to, if I put data in one place, it goes out to all the appropriate places. So we had got down to the fact that, in order for us to present talent to a client, we were having to put it into, 5 different systems. And then if a change was made, we were having to update 5 different systems. And it got down to the point that in order for us to go live to these client meetings, which, our team meets with the client every single week to present talent, this data was being entered so many times, and the administrative ask of our team had become, it was outweighing our output. And so we were really focusing on, that was the linchpin for us, right? How do we get rid of these candidate recaps and Excel spreadsheets and switch to something that is live time, that is constantly updating. It is accurate, and the client has eyes on it with every single change. And that was my closing point for the team is the Loxo candidate portal, the client portal. That was the closing point for me with the team, that they said, okay, that we're ready to make the commitment. Let's sign the paperwork for Loxo.
Yeah, so you see it, and I mean, talking through it, most people are like, well, that's not painful enough for me to make a change. And I wanted to dig through it. It's like, we have something that works. We're doing really well. However, if you stay on that path, you're not going to solve your problem, right? And if you go through it and you get to a better future state and you can make that happen, now suddenly you have something where you're set up for the future and success. You don't have to worry about that. You can focus on optimizing other parts of the business. So I think we'll get to that. Part of this too is, I think as an aspirational brand, you all have I would say more sophisticated organization than most, right? You're not a 5 or 10 person shop that has everyone's doing full desk, and you have marketing, you have sales, which is BD, you have the recruitment, you're sourcing, you have different brands. You also had a big challenge we talked all the time about was HubSpot, and just different pieces, and took a look at that. Can you talk, why are you all, I think HubSpot's a big one. So the BD and marketing side, why were you using HubSpot, and how are you using that in your day-to-day, and how has that changed?
So a year before we rolled into Loxo, we took our business developers out of the ATS and we put them into HubSpot along with our marketing team. And HubSpot is a very robust sales tool. And it's really intended for that, client acquisition, working the deal towards, the client acquisition phase. And what's nice is then we were able to segment our contacts for our business and our partner side versus our candidates. And it allowed us to really make that delineation between candidates and business contacts. So that was actually one of our first steps that we did even before we even discussed switching our ATS, was to move our sales team into a very robust sales tool that we use for Loxo and HubSpot. And then our marketing team has the ability to anchor the website off of HubSpot and run all of their marketing assets and materials and campaigns out of HubSpot. So once we had the business development team inside of HubSpot, we saw the capabilities and the opportunities. If we had a robust operating system that could really tailor to what the team needed, we could definitely continue to build out the success of both the business developers and the fulfillment team, right? Because we talked about, you said, our division of labor. So we have our division of labor set up in order to really offer that robust offering for our clients. So we have the business developer that works to acquire the client, and then from that time, then our fulfillment team takes over and really helps run the search once we've acquired that job order, that requisite. And our client managers, our recruiters, and our sourcers, they are all working out of the ATS and really keeping the candidates in one housing system, and then the BDs have their business development system. But for us, that was another pain point, right? Because we're like, if we're going to have two different systems, they have to talk at some point, right? And that was a lot of discussions, I know, Matt, that you and I had in solving for what element of communicativity or connectivity can we have back and forth between these two systems. So it was a challenge, but it was also an opportunity for us as well.
So a question I have for you, based on what you just said, you've lived to tell this tale, and we'll talk about where you're at today. But this took such a long process, and we had multiple conversations, I know, with different stakeholders, right? We'd go through things. I think the challenge for us is you go from any organization's current state is you live in a system, your system of record. You guys have PCR and you have different tools, but you're used to it, especially for the longer you're in it, the more you're just more comfortable with that. But you have things set up. And so what the natural tendency is for people is they want you to, hey, just turn this button on, show me your screen, and just literally show me this exact thing. And the demo environment's not necessarily set up for that. So you have to kind of hypothetically talk through things and say, at a high level, conceptually, it's the same stuff. You can configure, you can customize, not a big deal. but like you need to see it, you need to know. And my question for you is, we got to a point where, in my opinion, the old way of software implementations was like an Oracle. It's shelfware. Somebody'd say, oh, we have this. It would take 5 years to implement. And same with Salesforce, that you're actually not customizing. You're just trying to make it work. Whereas SaaS it better work really quickly and try to get up to speed. But again, you have all these different moving parts. You had Power BI, you had some old systems, you had, of course, LinkedIn, job boards. How did you get to a point where you felt comfortable enough, or can you share any advice for other people in the same shoes that you were when they're going through this? How do you help them understand, talking to Loxo, that they can have confidence that would fit a business similar to yours?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just goes back to setting a clear expectation. You have to know what you want, and you have to know that before you even start the conversation with any ATS. So understanding the process, and not just understanding it from a paper level, understand it rudimentary, right? In this process, I actually started recruiting, not because of it, but it was a need that we need in the organization to recruit internally. But what it did is it allowed me at a very intimate level to understand every single step within that process and what my team needed in order for this system to be successful. So having that depth of knowledge and having that clear, this is what we have to have. This is our, right, we always talk about when we recruit for clients, what is your must-haves and what is your nice-to-haves? And then bringing those must-haves to the table and showing, okay, if we can't do it like we're doing it today, what is the solution? What is option A? What is option B? Which is I love about Loxo, because there's always multiple different options, or that the update is coming at X, Y, and Z date. But really identifying what's your must-haves, what do you have to have in order for your team to be successful, and then what is your nice-to-haves. And then being involved at an intimate level. Don't just then let it go and just say, okay, well, they agreed to it, but then sticking with the project, right? For us, with our Loxo team, we went live on the Protis Global side in April, and I still meet with Vivian, our account rep. I still meet with her 2 to 3 times a week, and I'm in constant communication. And hey, can we tweak this? Or hey, I noticed this. Staying on top of it and staying involved with the project at every single level on the project management side, if that is your role in the search or the vetting process.
That's definitely a lot. And the best partnerships are when we have somebody that is smart and excited and wants to own it and understand everything. And like you said, it's a complete, tight partnership through the whole process. But it's not for everybody. So your advice is super helpful for people. But out of curiosity, what were your biggest concerns before shaking hands? I mean, were there top 3? Like what concerns did you say were, the analysis paralysis?
Yeah, for me, it was getting our data in there. How was the data going to come out of our legacy ATS? How was it going to go in? How are we going to be able to map it, right? Just getting our data in there. And we also did a very strong effort to scrub that data, right? Because we wanted to give good, clean data. So that was the number one concern, is getting good data in there. Number 2 was timeline. Because, we had set clear expectation on what that timeline looked like as far as, implementation process and then roll live date to the team. And I had some pretty clear goals. And I think I moved the go live date with Protis one time. And I was devastated to do so, but it was what was needed to happen. And ultimately, it ended up being the best decision for our team to roll a little bit later. Those were the biggest, honestly, top 2 concerns. And then, of course, down the line, something that we had as a different section of the project was the connectivity between HubSpot and Loxo, and having that back and forth communication for our 2 members of our sales team. That was the third and final concern for me in making that decision.
So data migration, timeline, integrations essentially, and then so those are top 3, I think, for everybody, which makes sense. Mm-hmm. So how'd the data migration go?
It was it was interesting. Vivian told us it was one of her most challenging. Now she's the one that's in charge of data migration from our legacy ATS. That is her now responsibility. So it was just, we had our legacy ATS for so long, and we had made so many tweaks and changes throughout the years. So we had multiple fields of data for the same answer, and we had to determine, okay, how many fields of responses are in each one of these categories? Are we keeping this? Can we remap it somewhere else before? And so just going through, because I didn't want to lose the data, and we didn't lose any data, but that was for me what took the longest was going through and ensuring that we were mapping the data appropriately and just making sure that all of the data coming in was going to the places that the team could then find it. Obviously not in the same place, but they were able to find it in a similar manner inside of Loxo.
Data migrations are tough, which is why it's a biggest concern. We do. Our CTO co-founder did the first 500 or so. It's horrible. It's a really difficult process. Most people outsource it. A lot of people have been through painful migrations, and we guarantee that we guarantee it. We're not going to lose any. We've also learned a lot internally where we are now kind of going to offer some different options where you do some different passes. But any advice you can give to people from the data migration that you learned, or like if they're in your shoes, what would you tell them that would make it as seamless as possible?
The biggest piece of advice I could give you is look at the data that you have to migrate. What of that data do you actually need, right? We set some parameters. Okay, we're not going to take any data that's older than 5 years, or we're not going to take any data that hasn't had any activity in 3 years. So really determining what data that you actually need. Just because you have the data doesn't mean that A, that it's good data, and B, that you need it. So really set a clear expectation and work with your whole team on that. Don't just make that decision internally, because there is data, right? I have had to revert some of my data scrubbing, so to speak, because the team was like, hey, you deleted somebody, I needed that person. So making sure that you're having a full comprehensive discussion with your entire sales team, your operations team, your marketing team, and ensuring that the data that you're pulling and taking and bringing into your new system is the actual data that you need.
Yeah, I hope everyone has a chance to listen to this as they go through the process, just to glean from your experience. But the data migration we talk about a lot. Also the configuration piece. I don't know about how you and Vivian approach it. We try to be very consultative. As you mentioned, you met a couple times a week for quite a while. Not everyone has to do that. Not everyone's business is sophisticated. But and you understand your business better than anybody. From a timeline and implementation perspective, I know you wanted lots of time, lots of overlap, get everything right. How did you feel about your timeline? Did it match your timeline and how you wanted it to? Would you have tightened it up?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to your point about, how many times I meet with Vivian a week, that was definitely self-inflicted, right? We have one dedicated standing office hour for Protis, and then we have one dedicated standing office hour a week for ACE. And then I added the third administrative one just to kind of wrap up anything that might be kind of outside or lingering. And we're actually to the point now we're able actually to most weeks we're canceling it, which is great. But going back to timeline, to really what we set the expectation, we did it twofold, because we do have ACE Talent Curators, which has their own system with their own candidates, their different profiles that are different than the Protis side. So with ACE, we actually decided to roll with them live first. They actually were inside of the database without any sort of their contacts, any of their companies. They just wanted to get in there and start experiencing it and really start working the system. So we worked with them very closely to kind of be our guinea pig, I call them. So they were working inside of Loxo while receiving the training, while doing data migration, which was really neat and exciting, because then what it allowed me to do was see that, Protis will be okay if we're not 100%, or even if we're not at 90% when we roll the team live there, because the system is so easy to use. The team was immediately successful and saw an immediate impact of using the database. That allowed me to be okay with maybe my timelines we originally were going for April 1st was our roll live date, and then we had one hiccup with it was something to do with the way one field was mapping with inside of the Protis database. We moved it back to April 22nd. And the team went live on April 22nd, and we were still, tweaking things inside of the system. But I was super confident once I saw how quickly ACE got in there and started working the database and how successful they were with little to no kind of intervention, right? They didn't have their contacts, so they were able to really roll live with it. I was more comfortable with pushing Protis ahead of some of the things not being fully kind of buttoned up, so to speak.
There's so many interesting things that you just shared, and some learnings that we're having internally as well lately. A question: is ACE 100% temp contract?
Yeah, so they do contract solutions. If they do perm, it's just perm conversions.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and so a lot of people have that question as well. Is like, can you handle temp, and how quickly we'll get up to speed? It sounds like that was super fast and seamless, which is wonderful.
Yes.
It's actually really smart. I wish we would have done this a long time ago. It's difficult because you kind of have to do all or nothing. But like the iterative rollout, that's how we used to do things in like 2013, 14. Mm-hmm. You had early adopters. Early adopters are, it's like the first iPhone, and they're just like, I want the newest tech. I'm willing to deal with some, to say rough around the edges is an understatement, but like gaps. And, they'll just jump in. And once you get to larger organizations, they can't afford the risk. They're like, you know what, we're fine. We don't have to be the first. We'll do it when we'll do it. But like having an iterative team seems the most successful. You did it kind of organically. Would you recommend that for people if they could do it?
Absolutely. And that's the way that I approach my training now when I get new team members in, because I know that the team members that went first on ACE, they weren't my most tech savvy team members. They had been in the legacy ATS, and that's all they ever knew, right? They weren't even in HubSpot at the time. So when I have new team members come on board, I know that I could give them an hour of Loxo one-on-one training. I can provide them your robust database of YouTube training videos, and then just be available for questions to them. And I know that they're going to be okay. They're going to figure it out. Are they going to have questions? Are they going to be rocky at first? Yeah, but that's just natural with life. So it's really given me the confidence to onboard new people into the ATS to know that they're going to be successful, and the learning curve is going to be very quick. Was
your team, by the way, the question I always have, I think the hard stakeholders are ops leaders like yourself, because it's your livelihood, it's your time, and if things go poorly, it's your career. You look bad in front of your peers and leadership team, which no one ever wants. And so you want to make that. But for me, it's like the recruiters, the sourcers, the day-to-day people that get to use the software all day. That's the easy one. You show it to them and they're really excited. I'm curious, was your team excited about the move? Like once they got their hands on it, what was your reaction like?
Yeah, I mean, it was mixed, right? Like you talked about your early adapters and then your late adapters. So we had a mixed bag of both. We had some team members that were like super amped about it, and some were like, I still want to use the old system. So we gave them the overlap. I think I gave them 3 weeks to work to you're going to still have our old ATS if you need to go and get data, if there's something missing for reference. But you're going to be kicked out at this state. And I really held firm on that because, there was, like I said, there was a mixed bag of people not willing to. Because, especially a sales team, I've noticed that with my sales team, they have this muscle memory that they build up. And for them, if they have to go in and think about what they need to be doing, it's challenging for them, or it's frustrating to them. So really helping them build that muscle memory. And I realized very quickly that giving them the crutch wasn't helping them. But I had one member of the team that was my quickest early adapter on the Protis side and was just so amped to talk about the team, was rolling things before we had even trained him on it. So then I really kind of leaned in with him, and I had him be the kind of my anchor for the rest of the team to show like, hey, look how, he's doing his client portal. Look at, he just submitted a candidate through Loxo. Look at the notes and how he's doing his highlight notes and presenting talent to the client on a weekly one-on-one call. And so I really leaned into that individual and had them help me support the rest of his team. And it was really neat to see that happen.
So you were proactive, you were methodical, you planned, you left no stone unturned, but you led. So I think oftentimes we, as technology vendors or suppliers or partners, you have to shoulder a lot of the change management, which is what you have a customer success management, which is we have our biggest department has grown dramatically in that space. I think we went from 25 to 100 or so in the past 18 months, and that's a lot of it's customer success. It's really hard, but the best partnerships, the most successful ones, is when you have a leader like Isabel and you led, and because your team will have to come back to you, and you will hit those spots where people are uncomfortable with change, and so you drew a line and you said we're making a change. Was that pretty difficult in general? And I mean, was that just part of your culture and the trust that Bert has, and how did you approach that?
It was just staying hyper involved in the process, and I still am, and I know that yes, it is a big time commitment to ask of anybody to go through this process. But the way that I look at it is, I'm going to get in I'm going to get out of it what I put into it. And I still have, team members come to me like, Loxo is not working. And I'm like, are we sure it's Loxo that's not working? Like, let's walk through the process here. But I really put people, like I talked about, the leader of the fulfillment team that he was the ambassador of it. So then I had a member of the operations team. That's my go-to Loxo individual. And Colin, I've made him the ambassador of Loxo. He's created the playbook for us. So the team knows that they have that one dedicated resource that they can go to at any time that can help them walk them through it. So the change management really, it's not an option, right? We are in Loxo. We use Loxo. So what's the issue? Let's address it. Is it a real issue? Can we fix it very quickly? Is there another solution? Let's sit down and let's work together and let's figure this out. And that's really what the approach is that we take with anything, not just with Loxo, just the way that we approach our business, and it's how we function as a business fundamentally.
So the last couple questions, and I'd like to take this in a few different places, but again, you had two entirely different businesses, lots of different integrations. You were the company was very happy and comfortable and successful. Nothing was wrong. You made the decision intentional to go through digital transformation. You've done it. I want to touch a bit on the integrations, but how are things going now in terms of adoption and things that have changed in the business? Did it align with your expectations and what you had hoped? And where are you along that process?
Absolutely. So the Loxo piece was just one piece of our digital transformation. We launched a new website at the beginning of this year, and we anchored the website on HubSpot, and then we have HubSpot talking to Loxo. We have all these online robust forms and different places for our candidates to go and see testimonials. So it's been part of our digital transformation and really taking Protis and ACE to the next level. And it's been really neat to have not only the front end of our client and our candidate experience, but also we've transformed the back end for our internal team and to make their experience better as well. So it's been really, really cool to be doing this. It's been stressful to be doing it all at the same time, but it's been really neat now that we're on this side to see everything firing on full throttle.
Yeah, I remember some of the conversations that we had. I mean, the current state where you were at, you were spending so much of your time just constantly putting out fires and dealing with tech stack headaches and stuff. The problems were perpetual. You knew that. That's why it lands on your plate at the end of the day. And you were that was a role, but you were like, listen, I don't want to spend all this time. I would like to get some time back to invest in other areas. And that was a concern, right? And I would hope, like, our perspective is we talk a lot about this from our product ethos and just everything is don't make me think. I don't want to have 100 meetings. I don't want to spend all day, every day fine tuning things, and it should be intuitive. Are you getting time back, and do you see yourself getting more time back to invest in other areas of business? And is that something you feel good about?
Absolutely. Just the time that from an internal recruiting and then an external recruiting time that the team has to know that the data that's going there is good data, and that data is going to stay good data, and that as long as I update the ATS, that my client's going to see it. So that frees up my time to not have to be supporting them on the administrative side of cleaning data, scrubbing data, getting those presentations ready for the client, to be working on future state projects. What we want. We had the then, we had the now, and then we have the future. So really going to dedicate my internal resources to working to that next step for the internal team.
Last couple, just questions for you. The integration with HubSpot. So HubSpot doesn't generally come up unless you're over, I don't know, maybe 20, recruiters or so, and you definitely have to have a sales BD function, but usually it's when you have the marketing function. Sometimes we say it with VP of marketing. Oftentimes people try to use it for the BD side, but their team doesn't adopt it, so they only use it for marketing. You've done it all successfully. You're using the integration with Loxo, obviously. Do you do all of your marketing and kind of newsletters through HubSpot?
Yes, all of our marketing campaigns, newsletters, form fills are all done through HubSpot, and our business developers solely operate on the business side out of HubSpot. And then we have the connectivity with our client partners communicating inside of Loxo. And we have the ability for our recruiters and our client managers to see the activity that our business developers have inside of HubSpot with just one quick link where it jumps over and you can see all of the activity that our business developers log within HubSpot. And, that hasn't been easy, right? Because what that means is we're having to monitor on a daily basis the activities that the team is logging in both databases to really ensure that they're adapting it and they're being successful. So it's definitely something that I'm constantly reporting and keeping an eye on. But I'm doing it from the stance that, we've given you these tools for you to be successful. And to be successful, you have to utilize the tools. So, how can we better help you be successful in using these tools? But yeah, our marketing team, obviously from a HubSpot standpoint, it is definitely a marketing loved tool. But on the business development side, they have really become exceptional masters at utilizing the resources within HubSpot too.
Well, wonderful. I mean, it's best case scenario. You managed it. You pulled it off exceptionally well, obviously.
Thank you.
Any other kind of advice you'd have for individuals that are in your shoes or facing this? They're wanting to do some changes or they're considering it. What advice would you give other firms and agencies?
Yeah. So obviously, you talked a lot about the amount of time and the energy that it took me to get to the decision, right, to signing the bottom line. Looking back now, I wish I could have pushed to get that decision sooner. And now that we're through it and we're on the other side, it was extremely daunting at the beginning. But being on the other side, it is so worth it. So really, if you are at, maybe let's say 75% there, really lean in with your team and talk through what's stopping you to get to that next point, because you're never going to be 100% on anything when you're making a lot of decisions, quite frankly. So don't pigeonhole yourself into, there's this one feature that they don't have right now that we can't make the decision because of it. That doesn't mean that it's not going to have it in the future, or that maybe when you start using the system, you're probably not going to need it anymore, quite frankly. So don't get stuck in, I have to be 100% here on this decision in order to take the next step. Sometimes you just have to take the leap. You really do.
Well, that is unbelievable advice, and I know this will be listened to thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So I know everyone thinks through these questions. And most organizations are not this complex or difficult. I know you had a lot more integrations, but if you're a recruiting agency, search firm, staffing company, everyone has the same tools, the same stack. It's just it's difficult, but it's just a process. And so you are the epitome of what people should do, and we can help facilitate that and make it easier. A couple of things. What's your ideal customer for Protis? Like who do you help the most?
Yeah, so we work in companies within CPG. So within traditionally our sweet spot is within food, within non-alc beverages or alcoholic, any kind of spirits-based, beer-based, or RTD drinks. We're traditionally working with companies in that space. And that are really looking to grow and to take their organization to the next level. So we've worked with organizations, for example, like Red Bull, right? When they were in that Red Bull gives you wings phase, we were truly, truly instrumental in getting their organization to the size and the gravity that they were in order for them to really execute on the sales of that level. So we really work with companies. Anything you see in the grocery store, those are typically our favorite kind of companies to work with.
Amazing. And then what about ACE?
Yeah, same. So the same clientele that we work with on the Protis side, ACE does, and they just support them with a different solution offering of interim contract solutions for staffing.
Do you, if you could hindsight go back in time, do you think it makes sense to have those as two kind of completely separate business entities, and does that work really well?
There's pluses and minuses for both, but we don't. Yes, right. We're two separate entities, but we really function as one. So there's plenty of times, like I was on a client call yesterday where ACE and Protis were both on the call representing both arms of the business. So yes, we are two separate entities, but we really do function as one. I always, when I give everybody our head count, I always say what our total head count is, and I'm like, that does include both our businesses, but we're really one big family.
Yeah. And you don't have to answer this at all. I'm just trying to give people a sense. Do you mind sharing like ballpark number of consultants you have on billing with ACE, or what does it range from over time? Or
Yeah.
if you're not.
I'll tell you, and then we'll figure out if ACE is okay with it. So obviously we want to be in that 25 to 30 range, right? I think 30 would be our goal, because ACE is small but mighty, right? They are a team of two. So it's the managing partner Andres Rodriguez, and then his senior search consultant Maria, and then marketing and operations fully support both Protis and ACE on both sides.
Okay, wonderful. And you all do you do in-house? Do you handle the timesheets and payroll in-house internally? I know you do with the MRI network.
Yeah, so we use People 2.0 through MRI for the contractors through ACE.
Okay, and that's the reason why I ask, and we can obviously decide. You can decide how comfortable you are sharing some of this. But a lot of organizations, especially in the market, as you grow and you expand and you get more sophisticated, you diversify in some ways, right? Your existing clientele ask you for, hey, can you also do this? Can you augment our searches with temp or interim? I'm sure yours happened organically. I'm making an assumption, but you did it. You've expanded successfully. And so there's more stuff, as you noted, moving parts and back office, but it's just part of the process, and you've done it. And so, like, going back to the iterative, you have to evolve, you have to continue to move forward if you want to grow, or you'll be surpassed by your competitors that are doing it. So congratulations for leading it. Yeah, you guys are an unbelievable customer partner, and you're an aspirational brand. We're grateful to earn your trust. I'm glad it went well. And do you have any questions for me, or anything you wanted to touch on that we haven't?
No. I think we've covered it really. And I know that you and I spoke earlier this week where you're asking if I'd speak to anybody, and I am always happy to have those style of discussions with people, especially in the industry. It's just neat to get to know how other businesses run their businesses, and any kind of support we can offer back and forth, obviously, to help one another. So I'm always happy to have those style discussions, because yes, with me explaining my process and how we've done it and how we are successful today. But it also makes me better too to learn how others are learning how they're doing in businesses and small little tweaks that maybe we can make to our team to ultimately make our team successful as well.
Well, that is unbelievable for you to even mention that, and you just get an understanding for you, Isabel, and Protis, and yeah, you're wonderful. It's funny, the recruiting industry tends to be that way. Actually, everyone shares best practices a lot. It's a tight knit community, as you know, and that's a big part of why we like to do this too, is help share knowledge and best practices and bring on the best people to do it. So, Isabel, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, and joining and sharing some of your feedback and knowledge for everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do so, Matt. Thank you.
All right. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye.
All right. Well, hope you all enjoyed that conversation between Matt and Isabel. I know that I learned a ton in that conversation. So hopefully it equips you with some knowledge, with some tactical things that you can take back to your team to potentially think about how you might want to incorporate this moving forward. So as we wrap, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you love this episode, but you're not sure where to go next, we do have a link to a similar one in the show notes. You can find those in the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform, as well as on our website. Full video episodes are available on YouTube if you like to watch your video episodes instead. If you ever have a specific question or you're looking for advice, send it to us, podcast@loxo.co. And lastly, if you did enjoy this episode, make sure that you leave us a quick rating in your podcast streaming platform. It only takes you 3 seconds, but it's going to help other recruiters like you to find us. All right, everyone, that's the show. That was a phenomenal interview between Matt and Isabel. Until next time, bye, y'all.